Welcome back to Total Disclosure. My name's Ty, and I'm your host. Welcome back to the show, guys. I'm super happy to be here. I did figure out, by the way, just a little update. I figured out what was wrong with my camera. Just a little tidbit. It's not actually a problem with my camera. It's actually a problem with my Mac and the USB port. So yeah, I have to get a new computer. So I have to spend another $1,000, which I'm super excited about. Yeah, awesome. But anyway, until I get that fixed, unless it's pre-recorded, I am going to be kind of offline here. But that's okay. Tonight, I want to get introduced by saying this: James Fox may have earned GOAT status with his new documentary, Moment of Contact. I must say, I am blown away. I can't wait to talk about it tonight. But before we get into that, guys, make sure to like, make sure to share, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to help support the channel further, please become a member of the show. Everything truly helps, and it goes back into production. Hey, it helps me buy a computer, so we can stay on camera. But other than that, take a look through our description. We got some new sponsors. Movie Palette is a new sponsor. Use code Culture Corner 15 at checkout for 15% off. You can get your favorite movie scene in on canvas and bring that centerpiece to life. All right, tonight we're joined by Little Pop Tart.
What
Man,
up? What up?
what's up?
Uh, how's it going?
It's going well. And yourself?
Doing good, buddy. Doing good.
So you watched the new movie.
Hell yeah, bro. Fuck yeah, I watched it.
All right, relax. We're gonna swear in the
I,
first
I,
32
I'm
seconds.
really, I really liked it though. I was really pleased.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I thought it was definitely one of the best. I'd say one of the best, outside the United States based, documentaries, but one of the best UFO documentaries, just in general.
Yeah,
Over the last couple of years, especially.
yeah, for sure. I love James Fox. I've been looking forward to this since I heard the announcement. And one thing that I really love about James Fox films is that he always goes with like something more than just CE1. He goes with usually CE3 cases. You know what I mean? Like with the Zimbabwe case, that was a landing, and he always does cases with beings, and not just the boring sighting and that's it, because these are the real juicy stories.
Yeah, had you ever heard of the Varginha UFO incident before this movie?
No, not at all. Never once.
Now, I had heard about it. I not in depth, not to that degree, but I had
Yeah,
heard about the Virginia UFO case just because of, because it really is big in Brazil, and
yeah,
Brazil's a hotspot for UFOs. So, the UFO community frequently hears about Brazil, but I'm surprised that this isn't in every single UFO documentary that's ever come out.
yeah.
The gravity of it.
It's these big
Um,
cases that never get the media attention that they deserve. It's only the threatening cases that get any media coverage at all.
right. And, that's the thing is, you hear some of the witness testimony, and it makes the hair, like at multiple points, the hair on my arm stood up just because of the gravity of what they were saying. It would, and I docked some points early on because I thought it didn't. There was no lead up. It just they got right into it and slapped you in the face with it. And I honestly I could have used a little bit more build up. And if they had wanted
Some
to make
foreplay.
2 hours, they could have added 15 minutes of history or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of the opposite. I kind of like to skip over that. I like to get straight to the action. You know what I'm saying?
Well, in this case, I do understand what he was, because they were shooting this during the pandemic, and they could probably only do so much. I'm not sure you guys noticed that they had the masks on the whole time.
Yeah,
But overall, what did you, if you had to give this a score out of out of 10, what would it be?
I'd say 9 stars, bro. I mean, it's for what it is. You know what I mean? Like you can't expect everybody to have the same knowledge and everything, even the same beliefs as Stephen Greer. So, for any other UFO documentary, this is as good as, it gets if, for not doing CE5. This is the best CE3 crash landing case that, that we could have.
What do you think about? I mean, so some of the stuff they're talking about in this is, and again, for people who are going to watch this in the future, or maybe haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is $20. Um, I bought it for the HD one for $20. I think there's a standard definition for 14.99. But those are the only two options right now. You can't rent it until November 1st. But again, I think it's worth it. For me, it was worth it. Anyone else, probably can wait till November 1st to rent it. But I thought it was important to make sure that I got to watch it a couple times before doing this. And so basically, the Varginha case is important because it's a very similar case to Roswell. Now, there's testimony from a certain gentleman who came upon the crash site that talked about the metallic nature of some of the debris and how he could squeeze it, it would pop back into its shape. That is identical, identical to the Roswell crash. How people spoke about that debris. They said the debris would fold in on itself, but pop right back. And you couldn't break it with a hammer. You couldn't, burn it with a torch. Like, it was indestructible. Um, and this guy literally starts saying that exact testimony, and it's just like it's haunting. Like, it was haunting.
It connects a lot of the dots, bro. I mean, every time a real story like this happens or comes out, all it does for me is just make more sense for everything else. It just connects everything.
Yeah, I mean, did you hear any similarities to other stories or
Yeah.
other incidents that you've heard? Because crashes
Oh,
or
yeah.
or landings are very different stories than just I saw a UFO fly overhead.
Yeah, definitely. This is, dealing with beings also. But as far as the UFO, the vehicle itself, yeah, it is very similar to a lot of UFO stories and cases. It was kind of described as like a tic tac shape, a cylindrical shape, but more metallic, silvery. And yet, like you said, the material would, you could crumple it up and it would come back. But yeah, as far as the actual craft, that's a very similar. I mean, the Tic Tac is what is the big one that the government released. So the beans
Yeah,
is what's really
this Gage, this he says he's in Roswell right now for 2 weeks.
oh, that's dope.
That's pretty that's a pretty wild place to be, while this documentary comes out. He
Yeah,
said he works in the oil fields, but yeah, always glad to have you here. So you know what I liked about this is when well, actually, some one thing I didn't like is they always call it a creature. I don't like
yeah,
how they call it a creature because we associate creature with monster. Um,
yeah,
and I don't like that part of it, but I understand why why they did it now because all the witnesses say creature, so that's why James just called it the creature, a creature as well. But most of when the girls start saying their testimony, they were saying that it was scared. It just wanted help. It just it was scared of us. It wanted help. Now I can't help but sit there and think to myself, how would I react if I was them? And I would like to think that I would try to help, but again, like I don't know, like you come across something like that when you don't expect it. Um, now I would double take and I'd be like, okay, this is a living being. We need to help. That's inevitably what I would get to, but I probably would be a little fucking freaked out at first. I mean,
yeah.
it's easy to say like, "Oh yeah, I'm hard. If I saw it, I'd help." Dude, not until you're in front of that thing do you really understand the scope of the situation you've just found yourself in. What did they say? The military was there within like a couple hours.
Um, the way the first witness described it, the witness that was at the crash site, he said that they got there kind of like driving out of the woods almost. They got there really quick,
Like
pretty
with it,
much
yeah.
before he
So
could get right up to it.
so we have to assume that any crash that happens on this planet, it's being at least monitored by the FAA or whatever. It's already been relayed to somewhere and they're on their way. So if you like, this goes out to anybody. If you ever find yourself in the fucking vicinity of a crashed UFO, grab something and get the fuck out of there. Grab what you can and don't let anyone see you. Get the fuck out of there because we need that piece of whatever you grab to educate the rest of the world. Don't get caught up in the awe of it. If there's a being, try to help, but more importantly, get the fuck out of there before anyone sees you. Because, I mean, far too many times we hear the story of suppression of evidence, suppression of everything. What did they throw in there? The United States Air Force landed without the authorization of the Brazilian government. So they came in, they basically shot first and asked questions later. They didn't give a fuck. They just came right in. So again, if you find yourself near a crash UFO, get out. Get out of there because they are right behind you. But
So
again, we don't want these things to crash anyway.
yeah, do you want me to give a basic rundown about the beings, about the story with the beings?
Yeah, I don't know how far I want to go into the plot details of the movie
Yeah.
because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that's going to watch it. So keep it vague in that aspect, but
Well,
yeah.
we can give spoiler alerts. You know, what I mean that there might be
Yeah, but
spoilers, but
you get
because
viewer drop offs.
because that's I think the most important part of the whole movie is the beings. You know what I'm saying? That's the main story.
Well, are
Um,
you describing who the beings are, or are you trying to?
well, that's the thing. What do you want me to?
So
How much do you want me to
I'm just
describe?
saying, don't tell them what happens in the movie. Like, don't tell them
Well, yeah.
like
Well,
where they get transported, that kind of stuff.
yeah. I'll give a
By
basic
whom?
outline though. So whenever the crash happened, 1996, Virginia, Brazil. Apparently, two beings survived the crash and wandered into town. Now there was multiple witnesses to seeing the beings, some of which were some very young girls, aged like 14 to
Yeah,
16,
three young
three young
girls.
girls, and they saw it cowered up against a wall, and they walked by it, and it turned around. They got scared, and it turned around, and they made eye contact, and they described it as having big red eyes, not human size, not human shape, and
Three
they
times the
described it
size.
they described it as being scared, though. They said that they had an exchange of fears, and
We got the
yeah,
graphic
no
up right
hair,
now of what it
no
looks like.
no mouth, just a little slit for a mouth. But the main thing was it was scared. It was on a different planet. And there's other stories like this. There's even video evidence of the Holloman's landing.
Yep.
But another one that I don't know is real or not. I don't know if you've seen of a UFO crash. It looked pretty legit. I'll send it to you. But there was a video circulating of an alleged UFO crash. So
Where?
yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how reliable the video is. Um,
Okay.
but
Well, yeah. So
I'll,
the beings. What I find really interesting about this one is they say that the being. So in the picture on the left, that was like the first rendition, artist rendition, because they were trying to convey that it had brown, like a like a weird brown oily skin, and later they talk about someone who handled the being and had a residue on him, like an oily residue. So those are two separate witnesses that said that. So that made reference to the oily nature of the being. That plus the red eyes and the formation of the feet. I just think there's far too many people's stories that overlap and confirm each other for there not to. And that's what the fucking. That's the moment you start realizing. That's what I thought was the craziest thing about this film was once you start hearing all these people's testimony overlap and confirm each other, you start realizing that an alien being was actually there a UFO actually crashed there, and this all is like most likely, I'd say 99% of it is true. Maybe some minute details are off, or these things are off, but this is the most credible, straight to the fucking point UFO crash. Uh, Roswell is even harder to comprehend than this. Roswell is a far more complicated cover up and a far more uh, uh, better disinformation campaign than this ever was. This is so like this is it. I mean, this is the cream de la creme of UFO crashes. All the witnesses are super fucking credible. The army did a fucking terrible job covering it up. And the U.S. Air Force tried to get out of there and not let this story come to light. But thank God James Fox just did what he did. I feel like this story is going to take a life of its own on now that this came out.
Right. I found it really interesting. Both of the beings were eventually captured, and the first being was in the morning captured by a group of firefighters, and they used a net. So, unlike in the evening when the military officer captured it with his bare hands and got in the back of the police car and put it on his lap, but took it to the 3 or 4 different hospitals, that officer ended up dying the next day from some sort of infection that the being had given him from touching it. But I guess the firefighters using the net were fine.
Yeah, they probably just had to deal with the smell. So every single witness spoke about a smell of ammonia. When they were describing it, it sounded more like sulfur, but and then one witness did say sulfur, which I was happy about because I was like, it sounds like they're talking about a sulfur, like a smell of sulfur, rotten eggs, like
Right.
that, the smell of matches. So yeah, they all spoke about the smell, every single one of them, and how it's stuck in their nose, and that's exactly what sulfur and ammonia do. Is they stick in your nose like you can't. It takes a while to recuperate from it.
Yeah. And there was that one officer that wouldn't show his face or give his identity, but he
Yeah,
gave the testimony about
yeah,
the
that's what
the
I want to stay away from that. That's like the
oh, I wasn't gonna give any details.
yeah,
There was just an army officer with a
that's
camera.
yeah, that's James Fox's. I feel like that's his surprise at the end. I feel like.
Oh, I don't know.
Wait, what are you
Whatever.
talking? Which one are you talking
I was
about?
just gonna say that one of the officers said that whenever the being was at the hospital, that he saw the being's feet and he saw like a portion of the being, but there was another officer there that had a camera hanging around his shoulder,
Yeah, I
so
wonder where
that
that video was.
there's gonna be footage of this being, uh, somewhere within the army or
Somewhere in the
the
archives, yeah.
Brazilian army, because
Somewhere in the
most of this
archives,
was
yeah.
them.
I wonder how much actual fucking do you think? Say say each one of these crashes actually happened, right? There's got to be
Right.
like 6 that we know about. No. 4 that we know about 100%. I wonder how much actual video out there like is smoking gun dead set match. This is an alien. Like no more questions asked.
Yeah.
Um,
the
and
the
that
crash the crash is just the beginning. Then once the technology is recovered, it's who gets the technology, and then it's a whole other story. You know what I mean? And then it creates the military industrial complex and so on.
and it, you know what? This kind of makes me want to go reassess Richard Doty's fucking testimony
Oh yeah.
because his story about the EB and how he had it, having conversations with the fucking thing. It honestly, it sounds way more legitimate now. You
Yeah.
know, now hearing this story and how the U.S. Air Force is like pretty much knew exactly what was going on, came in and just fucking scooped it
Yeah.
all up and took off like it was nothing. By
Well,
'96, how many times had they done this?
exactly. That's
It's
what I
it
was
was
about to say.
routine at that point. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Think
This
about that.
was this was a
That's
while
crazy.
since Roswell, so they know what they're doing for sure.
And then you got to think about everyone else's testimony, and that's what I like about the UFO community. What the UFO history is, every time something like this happens where a documentary is comes out and maybe they include this piece of footage that we've never seen before or this testimony that we've never heard before, and then you start you log it and start finding similarities with shit you've heard in the past and then reassessing or backing up with validity other things you've heard in the past about other situations. And the pattern here is starting to be one that you can't look away from, or one that you can't one that warrants further investigation. I guess is the small way to say it. But overall, I think this was so fantastically done that it, you know, I'm in awe. Like I said, I'm in awe. And
Right,
that
bro.
there's so many other things, going on. There's so much that's happening right now. The UAP report's coming due in October, and that's I know that's not at the top of everyone's foremost thing in the industry, because some people think it's a waste of time, others don't. I think it's going to be cool. I've been talking to people like Ross Coulthart about coming on the show, and that's all with that's their kind of that's their angle, is not maybe not necessarily the Luis Elizondo angle, but one of more like congressional aspect. And sometimes I like that stuff. I like Ross Coulthart and Bryce Sable's podcast, Need to Know. They do talk about a lot of the Elizondo, Tom DeLonge aspect of the phenomenon, but again, sometimes I like it. And they don't push that threat down your throat. It's more just like two people who are interested in having the conversation, and that's what I like.
Yeah, this case is just even more proof though that these ETs, they they were scared. They were not threatening whatsoever. They were more scared of us than we were of them, most likely. And they ended up being captured. And who knows how they were treated once captured? I can only assume it wasn't pleasant.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't go to the Radisson Hotel.
Yeah, they didn't go to the Four Seasons. That's
No,
for damn sure.
that's absolutely not the case. But and then that's the sad part. Even
Yeah,
when Richard Doty talked about EB, it made me sad,
yeah,
because if it's true, then we just kept an alien locked, like a living being locked in some fucking Area 51 S4 compound underground, and just poked and prodded the thing for fucking 6 years till it died. That is fucking torture. And someone should
yeah.
be held responsible for that.
It's a risk, bro. It's a risk for them to come here. It's not just they can't just land on the White House lawn and they can't just do this and that because we are still primates. We're still looked at as primates and hostile creatures.
Imagine that. Imagine you were some sort of higher form being, and you came here, in good faith, maybe you even in the best faith, you came here to help. You came here to fucking help, and something happens and you go down by sheer fucking, you know, the absolute worst luck in the world, and you go down, and that happens to you. Oh my God. Like, yeah, and that's the thing, is part of me was sad about this, was how we treated that fucking thing. And that's why I asked myself the question, what would I do? And I like to think that I would not turn it over to any government official, any government entity at all.
Yeah,
Because it would be only a matter of time till their buddies came fucking knocking. And they did. They fucking
yeah,
did.
yep. The
And
recon.
I found that to be super compelling. That thing was, if that secondary part was true, and that family wasn't just trying to capitalize on it, because everyone likes to use that. Oh, we didn't show our face, we must be telling the truth. No, that's absolutely not the case. But this family seemed super compelling. And they basically said that they saw a UFO while all this shit was happening, and it was doing a grid search. Basically, it was looked like it was doing a grid search, going up and down or back and forth, left and right, and probably trying to find these two beings that were at a loss. And probably couldn't be found because they were, outside of the technological capability, outside of a I don't even know how to talk telepathic connection with the being, but the being was probably so fucking frightened that it couldn't even lock in because it was just overwhelmed in a way that had never been overwhelmed before. Because you got to imagine, there's probably not too many situations an advanced being like that would be in where they were scared at that point, right? They're traveling through the fucking universe. They're not scared of too much because they've outdone it all. I feel bad. Yeah, and people talk about the red eyes. The red eyes. That definitely didn't help because
Yeah,
people in Brazil are super like spiritual and supernatural. So red eyes, they're automatically gonna think the devil, and they're gonna fucking run because they've been taught that way, and that's where religion is fucking shitty.
well, you remember Richard Doty even spoke about them doing the fake abductions in, I believe it was Brazil, it was South America, for sure.
Yeah, I
So
wonder about that
they
now.
they've already had that psychological warfare programmed. But even though it had red eyes, that's you know, just because it sounds scary doesn't make them actually threatening or
No,
hostile.
yeah, no
It
one.
does, I know what you mean though, for sure.
Yeah, it's simply just the fact that three young girls. They even referred to it in their testimonies that they thought it was the devil. That was what they told
Yeah,
their mother, and their mother was like, "Nah, the devil don't fucking exist, ladies. I'm sorry, but." And she's like, "Let's get in the truck and go find this devil." And then,
yeah.
yeah,
Imagine if they had, some if a civilian had captured it, instead of the military.
that's what
That
I wonder.
that would have been
Imagine.
like E.T. the movie. You know what I'm saying? Hanging out with a kid. But yeah, I mean, it's possible. It's just a shame that the government's always had one, two, three, four steps ahead on the
Yeah.
subject, so they know
Yep.
what to do and they're right there on it. So
And they can, like I said, not too many people even in the United States have heard about this Varginha case,
no,
let alone knew the United States government was involved.
yeah,
So I think, like I said, and huge shout out to James Fox, slowly and surely becoming the goat in UFO documentaries because, or at least independent UFO documentaries, like not made by, whether it's the Disclosure Project or something like that. Uh, the phenomenon I fucking was tremendous. Um, and this he follows every film of his up with a better film, and James is super talented. Did you okay, for instance, I want to throw this out there because it made me smile. So when he's talking to that guy who might have driven the car
yeah,
at the you hear how giddy he was when he was like, "Wait, was that Eric?" And
yeah,
he gets all giddy about it. He's like, "Holy fuck, dude, we talk," and like you just know he's super fucking invested and interested. Like you could hear the inner child come out of him when he because he has no idea what the fuck's going on when they're speaking Spanish. He's just
yeah.
like, "Wait, what's going on?" He didn't even know they were threatening to shoot him.
I know he was happy, bro. But he went all the way there. He didn't just make this from the comfort of his own home. You know what I mean? He went
Oh yeah, he was in the
there to do it.
trenches.
That's
He would,
that's
yeah, he was in the trenches, and that's what I mean. Like this, even you got to add the pandemic to it. He was
right.
traveling to places that most people would not have traveled to during this thing, and he did it with a smile on his face and with the UFO community on his back. So
Yeah,
like I said, huge shout out to James Fox, who definitely earned this in my mind. Um, just I gotta say, man, um, he's on the top, and I actually did talk to him. I talked to him the other day. I congratulated him. He said thank you. And I just over the moon. The guy's just a knockout. He's just a knockout player. And I can't wait till the day that I can sit down and talk to him. Um, I he's just he's one of those guys. He's just one of those guys that doesn't fall into the factionism of ufology. Like he's not in the Greer camp, he's not in the Elizondo camp. He stays out of it, and he just makes good fucking knowledgeable and educational movies. And he doesn't put like the scare tactics and the scary looking alien cut shots in that I hate. He does UFO documentaries with class, with fucking class. So, I mean, that's all I gotta say on it. I don't know about you.
Yeah, he actually messaged me too a few weeks ago just because I messaged him about my kids, big contact with the saucer that shapeshifted. And he just replied like, "Very interesting. Please tell me more." And yeah, I did. I
He
haven't heard
loves
nothing
that
back,
shit.
but yeah, and Steven Spielberg is actually the person who gave him
Who
the
gave him the? Yeah.
Zimbabwe case, which
Yep.
is so fascinating because even Spielberg himself couldn't think of a story that and real and that credible and that mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. He told that story on Rogan, I believe.
Yeah,
And I thought that was super fun. That was super cool to hear.
yeah, I really do. He also made I Know What I Saw, and I think it's called
Yeah.
Deep Blue, maybe. I think it might be
Yeah.
called Deep Blue.
Yeah. So he made yep, the deep blue one. Oh,
Yeah,
was it? No, it's out of the blue, wasn't it?
Out of the Blue. That's right.
Yeah, it
One,
was out of the blue. I know what I saw.
yeah,
Um, the phenomenon.
yeah.
I feel like there's one more.
There probably is.
I
Those are
feel like
just the
there's one
ones
more.
I'm familiar with, and I Know What I Saw. I believe was about the Arizona Phoenix Lights. I believe that's what that entire movie was about.
He's done, like I said, he's done some great work, and I think that's why I and by the way, he started as a hardcore skeptic, like a
Oh yeah,
hardcore skeptic. Yeah, him and his dad were hard. Well, he was a skeptic. He just never looked into it. Um,
yeah,
like never looked into it sincerely, I should say. And
yeah,
then when he started, when he got told about it, like told like, wait, you've never heard about all this stuff? He was like, no. And then he started. Then he made a movie about it. And his dad was like, no, you're gonna ruin your career, yada yada. And then his dad, was a super skeptic for a long time. And then finally, finally, his dad came around and then became like a hard believer.
damn,
So they got a cool story, and just in that alone. But yeah, James, I think, and he definitely chose. I'll say this, uh, that Brazilian lady that he chose to the translation. She was easy on the eyes to look
Oh,
at
I
throughout
know, bro.
throughout the
She was
throughout the
bad.
fucking movie. Yeah,
She was hot as hell.
yeah. So they shout out to James for that one, man. Shout out to James. But hey, listen, also in the same fucking in the same day, Ryan Graves ended up being on Rogan.
Yep, that's
And
right.
Ryan, I've been trying to get Ryan on camera
Really.
for a while, because he's from Boston, just like I am.
Oh, okay, okay.
So he's in the. I could him and I could, literally meet. And when I do the film, I want to make a movie about the East Coast and UFOs, and I would love him to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna take I want to take a look at a clip from Joe Rogan after this. Yeah, so Ryan Graves is, right?
Yeah, of course, of course.
The Joe Rogan
I love
Experience.
Ryan.
Please tell
I love.
people your
I mean,
credentials, what your
I
background is.
like
Sure.
um
So,
I like
my name's Ryan
his
Graves.
view on it.
I have an engineering degree, mechanical and aerospace engineering. I promptly left doing that to go fly F-18s for the Navy as soon as I graduated college. Did
This
that
isn't
for about a
the
decade,
whole thing, right? Yeah, no,
both
this is the 15-minute.
operationally in combat as well as an
But
instructor
I know that you.
role teaching the
So
new students.
1 second. So I know the Tic Tac. We've talked about and how it's most likely some man-made advancement from a
Yeah.
reverse engineered craft. But what do you think about the spheres with the square? I mean, the the spheres with the squares in it that that touch both of the edges. I never heard your input on those ones, or even Greer's input on those ones.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's definitely possible that that's man-made. I can't say, you know, definitively whether or not one of them is man-made or not because they are so good at it. You know what I mean? And I don't claim to be an all-knowing person either. I'm trying to learn about the subject like anyone. But the cube inside the sphere is one of the most fascinating, you know, crafts I've ever heard of. That's very bizarre, and it's even more bizarre because it's like I don't know how big exactly. I haven't seen this episode yet, so I don't know. They've been talking about them for a while. The cubes
Yeah,
within spheres. I don't know how big they are. It sounds a little
it's like
bit like an orb, but I'm guessing it's not.
yeah. So, but he says they remain stationary. So the wind whipping,
Yeah.
like up 25,000 feet in the air, these things just remain stationary. And then, by all means, these things shouldn't even be able to fly because it's just a beach ball. You know,
Yeah.
it's the thing's the size of a beach ball. Is typically what they
Okay.
talked about, and it just doesn't even make sense. And that's
Yeah.
what blows their mind. But it wasn't, they've been seeing these things on a daily basis, and it wasn't until one of the UFOs split their aircraft. So when I say split their aircraft, I mean there was two aircraft flying in formation, and the UFO flew in the middle of two of the aircraft. So it split them, in the flight pattern. And that's when they started issuing safety of flight. And then, that's what set off the domino reaction of getting this brought in front of someone because it had become like a legitimate issue at that point. Um, Thank you for subscribing, Sarah. We really appreciate it. I like how it's sending me these messages now. So it's telling me when people subscribe so you can
Oh
shout
yeah.
them out.
Cool.
I like it.
That's cool. The
And
only
um, Toasty Paws sent. It doesn't show up on Streamyard for some reason, but Toasty Paws sent a member milestone, and he said just a couple more weeks till Comic Con. It won't let me bring it up on screen for some reason. Streamyard doesn't recognize those for some reason, so I apologize for that. But I see it. I see it. Um, but yeah, so let's take a little bit more look into this. We'll probably won't play this whole clip because it's 15 minutes long and I don't want to listen to it. Um, but it gives a little background on Ryan Graves' testimony.
Instead of seeing an empty airspace with just my wing person or another squadron doing something a different block, there were all of a sudden a lot of different radar contacts, which is immediately a problem because we could be hitting one of those or someone working in our area. Um, and this was happening because we upgraded our radar the best we could tell.
So
We
they
were in
upgraded their
a
radar and started
earlier radar
noticing
called the APG 73.
they were missing something
We had come
this
back
whole
from
time.
deployment. We entered a maintenance phase, it's called. We kind of do a little bit less flying, upgrade the jets if we need to, do any long-lasting maintenance, and we upgraded to the APG 79, which was a much better radar.
And what is the difference in the capabilities of the upgraded radar system versus the original system?
Mm-hmm. So, kind of practically speaking, it's like going from an analog TV essentially to like an OLED. It's, a digital modern tool compared to more of like an analog classical radar that has more limited range.
Now, I can't stress the scope of what they're talking about right now. And I think what Joe is trying to get to in his line of questioning, which is why Joe Rogan is among the best interviewers in the world, and why I study Rogan and how he will lead a conversation, is what the when it wasn't until they upgraded their radar did they start noticing that they were tracking these things on a consistent basis. So for up until that moment, these things might have always been there. We might have been. So what does that say about our technology? Right? We're only now getting to a place where we can start picking these things up. Like, publicly. I don't know what they have behind fucking closed doors. Obviously, at Lockheed is a different story. But, to the general public and the general military, we're only finally able to really get a grasp on what's around us all the time. So I think that's interesting. Don't you?
Yeah, for sure, bro. Our technology only gets better and better. But the thing is, my big beef with that argument is that we've never needed technology in the first place, at least not to make contact. You obviously know
Right. Yeah. But
how
I
I feel
mean,
about CE5 and
yeah, I
whatnot.
know. But
So
take all that out of
yeah,
it for a minute.
yeah, it's always cool, especially if technology can pick up UFOs. They obviously have many capabilities to cloak themselves and be invisible. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think Ryan Graves is a great military witness. He's obviously not a ufologist, not a UFO person, but he's a good military witness, and that's all I think regarding him. I don't think
And
he's
his whole thing
good
about
or
it
bad.
is flight safety. He doesn't, he's mentioned it many, many times where he doesn't, have a specific mindset on if aliens exist or who's, what's what. He's interested in who pilots, UFOs in
He's
general.
He's
But,
scared too. He's always scared, and every interview he's saying how scared he is of these and how scary they are. That's the only thing I don't like.
well, as a pilot doing
Yeah,
mock whatever,
I
if
get
you
it.
hit something like that, dude, you're fucked.
I,
You are
I
done.
get it.
But and that's to say, if they're man-made, then they're subject to man-made error, right? If it's an alien UFO, you're not going to hit that fucking thing. Trust me, you're not hitting it. You couldn't even accidentally hit that fucking thing. So you're good there. But again, if these things are man-made, you never know. All of a sudden, a catastrophe happens. And if it's government, if it's military on military, that shit is going to get buried, and we will never hear about it. Not even a whisper about it. For maybe 10, 15, 20 years until it's already fucking too late. Same thing with the nuclear silos. Robert Salas didn't talk about that for 20 years. So no one knew. That's my issue. Is when does loyalty to country outweigh loyalty to humanity? Is there a line? I don't know.
Trained and has less ability to track multiple targets and things of that nature. So just generally speaking, we would expect to see
Skip forward.
operating area. It is
All right, you know what? I'm not even gonna watch this. You guys just check out Joe Rogan's fucking podcast with Ryan Graves because I don't want to watch it. I already watched the whole thing. So yeah, listen. So I did want to talk about one thing. There's a group that is suing the Biden administration about the JFK files still being sealed and being
Hmm,
suppressed by the CIA. Now,
damn.
a lot of people, including Stephen Greer, think that JFK was killed not just because of some political motivation, but it directly correlated with the UFO issue. What is your stance on this, and where do you sit on the spectrum?
I think that it's the most plausible theory, honestly, bro, because this is the biggest secret in human history, the biggest secret in American history, and anybody that would expose that. JFK was up against the military-industrial complex. He was up against these oil companies, the people that really run the world. So if he was even, considering leaking this information, the important stuff that would expose a lot, then yeah, that's really their only choice, and it makes more sense than anything.
Well, yeah, and so for anyone who doesn't know, um, there are people who have said that JFK was going to dissolve the CIA, end UFO secrecy, open the files. But I feel like they say that about every president. So again, about opening the UFO files. Um, there was, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that JFK did not like the national security state, and that he didn't like where the country was headed in the terms of how we were able to basically monitor every civilian the kind of like the scene in Batman where Alfred walks away from the fucking spy machine thing. It was, it was too much. It had gone too far, and they killed him to keep the surveillance state awake and going. Now, did UFOs tie into it? I'm sure, because part of what the NSA has done, and was the NSA was created not even. It was, yeah, it was like a couple months after Roswell was the NSA Act, and the national security state was born. So coincidence? I mean, I don't think so. I think that there's a, and why would they keep the secret? Why would they keep all the evidence are surrounding this a secret if it wasn't gonna oust somebody that it shouldn't?
Well,
And there is a fucking track record for this. I don't know, after the Roswell era, after World War II, where something happened to our country, and things just got really weird, and very, 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 very secretive, and compartmentalized, and there's just growing paranoia amongst people. I don't like it. The more you hear about it, the more sick it makes you. And guys like Greer have tried to bring it out and talk about it, but nothing happens, and nothing. I don't think anything will be ever. Will be nothing will be not required, but nothing will be allowed to happen unless it's like a legitimate revolution. And I don't know how much of that is going to happen.
Well, Clinton also wanted to get this information released, and according to Greer, one of Clinton's people that he was meeting with um, expressed concern, saying that if Clinton pushes any further, they're concerned that he was going to end up like JFK. And apparently, Greer broke out laughing, thinking it was a joke, but they were dead serious that they were going to assassinate Bill Clinton if he pushed further on this subject.
Imagine that.
Crazy.
And then you got to think, didn't the other Kennedy fucking die in like a helicopter crash or something?
A
Or
lot of
plane
them,
crash?
a lot of the family members died. Yeah, mysterious circumstances, and Marilyn Monroe
And
too.
Marilyn Monroe, yeah.
So,
That's a wild fucking that's a wild theory that they have about her.
yeah, I don't know. The Marilyn Monroe blonde movie was really good, but of course it showed her, strung out on drugs, overdosing. It didn't show something super cool though. Easter egg in that movie. Whenever it does finally show Jack Kennedy in the movie, and she goes to the White House or wherever to meet up with them. While they're hanging out, they're hanging out in the background in front of them. JFK's watching TV, and on the TV is a bunch of like a compilation of old school flying saucer movies or videos.
Oh,
Super fucking cool.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But you want to tell the Marilyn Monroe connection?
Well, basically, I mean, I don't read too much into this theory because I don't think that there is too much proof that I mean, at least not that I've seen. But the theory, I guess, basically is that Marilyn was sleeping with both JFK and his brother. But mainly, though, is that she was getting information about the UFO subject, whoever, from JFK, and that he, I guess, told her too much. She was his side bitch, and too much pillow talk. And yeah, I guess that she might have, talked him, was wanting him to do the right thing and expose these secrets, which any good person would. So
Yeah, and you got to think, if you're Marilyn, you probably just want to keep hearing more and more. And then the story goes that both Robert and Jack cut ties with her because it was going to be a tragedy, a national tragedy, because you know a president of that caliber, the people loved JFK, and for that scandal to come out, it was gonna ruin everything. And basically the advisors were like, dude, you guys gotta end this shit. Like, you gotta wrap this up. And they did. And they did. But that only made Marilyn mad. And the story goes that she was gonna leak it to the press. And like some sort of like, kind of like a Bob Lazar event. When George did the Bob Lazar like expose over a week-long period, they were gonna do something like that. And then they found her dead of an overdose.
Yeah.
And obviously, her seat, it died with her. And then subsequently, it's just kind of weird how, it doesn't look good. Every single person in the story is dead within a year, 2 years, right? So, something, it does not fucking smell right. It doesn't. I think maybe the national security state, and maybe their motivation was for survival, right, of their own national security state. But I bet that the whole UFO thing just was the last straw. I bet it was the last straw, and they were like, this has gotta go. And I bet that whole who shot JFK, who the guy that they say did it, what's his name?
Roy Harvey or Lee Harvey
Lee Harvey
Oswald.
Oswald. I bet that he did shoot the president, but I bet the CIA or someone got it in this fucking guy's head to do it, because that's exactly what they do. That's plausible deniability right there, right? So, I mean, I'm sure that's why they've suppressed all the evidence, because they don't want to be tied to it somehow. Whether they used, because then we could start talking about MK Ultra and mind control. Clearly, they fucking looked into it and successfully. Who's to say that they didn't fucking brainwash this guy into shooting the president, right? Planting a bunch of conspiracies in his head and getting him all worked up enough to fucking shoot the president because they got this guy loaded up on fucking acid every day. Who knows? Like, the government will resort to dirty, dirty, dirty stuff. And that's only apparent in this new documentary by James Fox.
And although it's obviously fiction, American Horror Story, when they did one of the newest seasons, season 10, half of it about aliens and Eisenhower, JFK and Marilyn also are on it. You're right, it does that is the story about Marilyn, but at least on American Horror Story, it showed that she was making like a movie about it, talking about it,
Oh,
like some sort
yeah.
of like a documentary movie. And yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's the biggest secret of human history. The only other bigger secret would be if they had proof that God exists. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that would be bigger than this.
Yeah.
And Marilyn Monroe and JFK would be the two most credible people
Oh,
on
yeah.
Earth at that time.
Yeah.
So of course, them coming out and saying it would be catastrophic to the military industrial complex.
You know what I liked hearing in the James Fox documentary was when they're talking about the police, the kid who died, and they're talking about how they about the mother and how they told her that if they said it, civilization would collapse. I think they do believe that they're keeping the secret with with a good intent. I think
Yeah.
they think they're doing the right thing. Or maybe at least it started that way. But somewhere, greed came in, and maybe the Brazilian government did do it on safety alone, but the United States government sure didn't. And that's the problem. So, there is this thought of, not to challenge the status quo, not to rise people up. And we got to stop living like that, because if no one's challenged the status quo, then we're not going to evolve in any form.
That's right. I mean, it's like, how many cases like this, bro, are we gonna need before we believe it? It's like we can have all the evidence in the world and still be like, maybe not, maybe not. This one case alone, the Varginha, Brazil case, that's a smoking gun, case
To me, it
altogether.
was.
I mean, and for me, I've already had this you know, I don't even know, not an epiphany, but this just realization after making contact that, okay, this is real. I've had time to digest it and to process it. And so it this stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not too far. It's not something that's going to collapse society. It's not going to cause mass hysteria. There's a lot of reasons why it's been kept secret, but none of which is that it's going to be anything negative for us. 99% of the world's population will benefit from disclosure. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know what is a good thing to think about? So what would change about your life if
if disclosure happened,
disclosure? Yeah.
um, well, for one, I think that we'd get a lot more views. We'd be taken a lot more seriously, and people will be looking for people like us. Like UFO people,
Yeah.
ufologists, for
Yeah, I think
answers.
we'd be catapulted.
Yeah, to the forefront, bro. And that's why, a reason why I wanted to do this subject for a career and make it my life is because there's so much opportunity. You can look at a negative way and be like, oh well, there's nobody that does this, nobody's making money from UFO stuff, blah blah blah. Or you can look at it with the optimistic point of view, is there's so much openness and so much potential for the
Yeah.
subject.
Yeah, there is, because the book hasn't been written yet.
Yeah,
So we're
exactly.
writing the book right now, and that's I think what the coolest part about it is we are literally forging the history on this subject because it hasn't happened yet to the full potential it could, right? There's
Yeah.
still doubt in people's mind that this is, it. So it hasn't entered into the history book. So
Yep.
thus, the one good thing about that is we still get to write our future.
Yep. It's a stage of our evolution, bro. Just another stage, and we have to survive this nuclear stage in order to get to the next one, spiritual stage, and
Yeah.
more
Speaking of that,
technology,
did you
etc.
see the Russia attack on Ukraine?
I don't guess so. I don't think.
They sent in like these Iranian drones. They're called I don't know what their actual name is for them, but they're kamikaze drones, and they fly in and fucking it's basically it's like a drone missile, and it fucking flies itself into something and blows up.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
and they sent like 30 of those fucking things across Ukraine and did some real damage. So, the reason that I like to stay up to date on this war is because not only because of the implication, but because we as humans of this world should be, because we should be standing against this shit. We should be moving away from armed conflict, not towards it.
Yep.
Um, so that's my perspective. I know for once in our lives, we are not involved, but even that makes it a little bit scarier
Yep. War is
because
scary.
say what you want about the United States, but there's not much that people can do to defend against us. So there's no need for a nuclear threat at the moment. So, when we're involved in something, it's kind of, all right, till when do we, till when is it going to end? Basically, is what you wonder. That same thing with Iraq, all that shit. But in this case, it's kind of watching from afar is not fun. So this is how the rest of the world must feel whenever the United States does anything.
Yep. And we support Ukraine, even though we did the same thing as Russia. We invaded Iraq. It's like we're literally no different. And now that we've already, defeated basically every country, gone to war with every country that is on Earth, the only next stage is going into space. And that's why militarism is dangerous. And that's why we have to end war completely.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we'll be able to figure that one out. Maybe some help from above wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. It's not a new concept. That's what the hippies or whatever in the 60s and 70s were outside protesting about, was no war. Same with John Lennon. He was all anti-war, and the government called him terrorist, anti-American, all this stuff. But really, that's that's more pro-human than anything, is to
Yeah.
not want violence. So
Yeah.
that's what
But
they do, though. They
yeah,
make
and
out us to be
unfortunately,
crazy, UFO people to be crazy or whatever. They make out anybody that's their enemy to be an enemy. So
even the most peaceful people are insane or terrorists or radicalists or
just
this or
like
that.
Lou calling Greer a terrorist is the perfect
Oh.
example, bro. Perfect example.
Yeah, I don't know what the context for that. I still haven't heard that, so I can't
Oh,
say
really?
one way or the other.
I'll send
Um,
it.
but I mean, what was the context?
He was literally just asking to have a discussion. Lou was on some other interview, and he said, "So I guess that you're not going to take up Greer for a one-on-one discussion or debate on third phase of Moon." And he said, "Well, all I can say of that is when I think of Greer, he said, oh, he said, no, he said,
I bet he
well,
said,
he
I
said we
don't
don't."
negotiate with terrorists.
He said,
That is a
I don't
common
negotiate with terrorists."
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a common phrase. So I don't know if okay, God, because you can't say that he didn't say it. He
yeah. And then he
definitely, if
said, then
in
he
that case,
compared him to
he did
Heaven's
say it.
Gates. He said, all I can think of is Heaven Gates and Jim Jones or
Okay,
somebody,
so
Jim
he's
Jones. I
calling
don't
him a
know,
cult leader.
calling him a cult leader. Yeah,
Okay,
and a terrorist. So
and I think that's so far fetched because even if you know the message that Greer's giving is one of peace, and I don't think it's a bad thing regardless. Um, Even if it turned out to be maybe not true. I don't know. I'm just saying. Uh, at the end of the day, he wouldn't have caused anyone harm. So no, do not you can't relate him to Jim Jones. Jim Jones is a fucking monster, like a
right.
legitimate monster. So no, that is an unfair comparison in every single sense of the word, and that's super disrespectful. So yeah, I definitely don't support that.
Yeah, that's why I feel so strongly at times I do about Lou and his supporters, whether it be his supporters in the UFO community like Corbell or other people. It's an emotional subject, so sometimes I do get worked up and get emotional about it.
Yeah. And I guess that's okay. We all have our
We're human.
strings. Yeah. Sadly, right?
Yep.
um, but yeah, so we'll wrap it up for tonight. But this Sunday, we have Laureen Fenton coming on. She's a lecturer. She's a UFO lecturer, and she did a show about it. On a smaller network, but she's gonna be really fun to talk to. I can't wait. And then
Cool.
we'll probably do a show on Thursday or Friday as well. So that one, everything, like I said, trying to build a schedule so that it's consistent every single week. So I was thinking Tuesday, Thursday on YouTube, and Sundays for YouTube and the podcast audio platforms. So whether you're listening or watching these shows, we do appreciate your support, and definitely like, share, and subscribe no matter where you are, because it helps support. And we need all we can get. Greer's protege, Lil Pop Tart. Where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram, double_Lil Pop Tart, Twitter _Lil Pop Tart, and I just created a Parlor account, which is the new social media that Ye, formerly known as Kanye West, is purchasing. And I'm Lil Pop Tart on there too.
You and your Kanye West. Oh my God.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see ya next time. And don't forget, if you or someone you know has a contact to CE1 through 4 and wants to tell your story, please contact us through Twitter or email us. Actually, don't use that email. Use pop.culturecorner2020 at gmail.com. We would love to hear your story and then deem if it was deem if it was valid enough to, discuss on the show. Obviously, things that are explicit and stuff we can't do, but we'll vet it and we'll discuss it. All right, guys. See you next time.